Hello, and welcome to our lesson 2.1, Biology, the Study of Life. It's in our class about cells. My name is Lauren Davis. I'm one of the instructors for this class. The term biology is the study of life. It's the science of studying living organisms and living things here on Earth. First, we need to talk about the characteristics of all living things. You see that there's a list below of the 6 things that all living organisms must have. All living organisms must respond to their environment. They must grow and develop. They must reproduce. They must try to maintain homeostasis. They must have metabolism, and they have to be made of cells. If something is missing one of these 6 things, then it would not be considered a living organism or a living thing. So again, all of those 6 things must be present in order for something to be called a living organism. All living organisms are made of cells. It's the basic structure of all living things and the smallest unit of life. Homeostasis is simply the term that talks about the nature of living things trying to maintain a consistent environment. For example, the human tries to maintain a consistent temperature. Our body temperature is about 98.6. If something happens where we are hotter than 98.6, our body will do something in order to try to bring down that temperature, like sweat. If our body temperature is lower than that, then it'll do something like shiver to try to get more energy into those cells and heat us up. So that is an example of homeostasis, trying to maintain a consistent body temperature. Our body does many things in order to maintain homeostasis. It often has a negative feedback loop that helps us maintain a homeostasis inside of our body. And the examples I said before are part of a negative feedback loop. If something is missing, they try to fill that to reverse the trend. For example, if we are hungry, our stomach growls in order to get more food. If we are hot, we sweat. Those are all examples of negative feedback loops. They're trying to reverse or change the trend that's happening in our bodies. A positive feedback loop is less common in our bodies, and that's something that actually adds something to our body to keep that change going. There are some unifying principles of biology. One is called the cell theory, and we mentioned that just earlier. All living things are made up of cells, and all of the cells that are out there always come from other living cells. And that's a simple way of saying that every human, every creature, everything that's living on the earth is made of cells and has come from cells. The gene theory is the characteristic of all living things are controlled by the genes within our cells, and they are passed from parent to offspring. We already talked about homeostasis. Does not just apply to living things, but as nature as a whole tries to maintain a homeostasis environment. And evolution is just how living organisms change over very long periods of time. Evolution occurs through natural selection, and natural selection just simply means that some genes better suit the organism for survival in the environment, and they're more likely to be passed on to future generations of that organism. And an adaptation is a change of characteristics that help a living organism survive in that environment. Things with positive adaptations for the environment will pass those adaptations on to their offspring, and those offsprings will have a better chance of surviving and passing the gene on again. And over long periods of time, natural selection causes evolution. An organism is simply a living thing, and as we go down this list on this slide, we see that we go from the smallest to the largest. Okay, so organism is a simple living thing, and sometimes living things live in a close relationship with one another, or even attached to one another. And when 2 different organisms attach to each other, it's considered a symbiotic relationship. And within a symbiotic relationship, at least one of the 2 species benefit from that relationship. Mutualism is a interdependence of life where both will benefit from their close relationship. And parasitism is where the two species are living together, where one benefits and one is harmed. Competition is a relationship where living things depend on the same resources like food or water, and they compete for those resources. So this slide goes from smallest to largest. The cells are the basic living unit. There are some one-cell animals out there, or organisms out there, okay, and those organisms are very small, but they have all of the 6 characteristics of living things. Okay, so a cell is the basic living unit. Tissues are made up of cells. It's a group of the same type of cells working together, and an organ is a group of tissues that work together. So we're going from less complicated to more complicated as we go down this as well. And organ systems, such as our skeletal system or our digestive system, are a group of organs that are working together. And an organism is all of the organs working together to maintain homeostasis and to maintain life in that organism. So when we talk about nature and we talk about the living things that are living in our environment, we can talk about them in several different ways. And again, this goes from smallest to largest. When we talk about just a group of the same species living together, we're talking about a population. For example, we can talk about the population of deer that live in a forest. Okay, and we simply go and try to estimate how many deer are out there based on censuses and counting. But that's just talks about one species of organisms. When you talk about all of the populations in a same area of different organisms, we're talking about a community. Okay, but again, in a community, we're only talking about living organisms and all the populations of living organisms in that area, all the different species. So population is one species, community is all the species, and ecosystem is not only all the species, but all the non-living things as well. Okay, rocks and the other things in the environment that are part of this ecosystem, sand dunes and dirt and those kind of things that are non-living things that actually affect the living things that are there. So when you talk about an ecosystem, you're talking about all the living and non-living things. Then when you get to biomes, you're talking about big places on the earth like the tundra that has a group of similar ecosystems and similar characteristics and rainfall and temperature and different climate, or the same climate that is over that biome. And the biosphere is simply the part of the earth that supports life. Life probably began on Earth somewhere around 4 billion years ago. Okay? Life is consistently evolving, adapting to the new changes in the environment. And this whole idea of evolution goes back many, many years. But it's most often associated with Charles Darwin and his book On the Origins of Species, which was published in 1869. Science continues to collect evidence that evolution is happening even now and has happened in the past.